Hello everyone, as every day, I am here with the breaking news. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. To convey better information to you, please subscribe to the channel for free and like and comment on the video. Now we can move on to the details. Top Ukrainian general discusses war against Russia, Putin's nuclear threat, exclusive, we are and should be worried, General Colonel Oleksandr Syrsky said Ukraine. The commander of the Ukrainian ground forces warned that Russian President Vladimir Putin's threat to use nuclear weapons in Ukraine is real and that the West should be worried, but said his country is nonetheless winning the war. General Colonel Oleksandr Syrsky made the comments in an exclusive interview with ABC News chief foreign correspondent Ian Pannell in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv on Sunday. As the 57-year-old top commander of his country's land forces, Syrsky has played a decisive role in turning the war in Ukraine's favor, first leading the successful defense of the capital, Kyiv, and then, most recently, masterminding the spectacular counteroffensive in the northeast that upended the months-long conflict and threw Russian forces onto the defensive. The rare interview, airing Monday on Good Morning America, is one of the few times Syrsky has spoken publicly at length, and he described Ukraine's tactics, the importance of Western support, the threat of renewed attacks from Belarus, and his determination that Ukraine will reclaim all of its territory, including the Moscow-annexed Crimean Peninsula. Ukraine's successes, however, have been shadowed by the recent threats from Putin that Russia might resort to nuclear weapons to reverse the course of his war in Ukraine. Syrsky told ABC News that he takes the threats seriously. We are and should be worried, Syrsky said. I do believe that such a threat really exists and we have to take it into account. The urgency of those worries was underlined on Sunday when Russian Minister of Defense Sergei Shoigu made telephone calls to his counterparts in France, Turkey, the United Kingdom and the United States, alleging that Ukraine was preparing to use a dirty bomb on its own territory. Shoigu's claims sparked fears that Russia might be laying the groundwork to use a nuclear weapon and blame Ukraine for it. Following Shoigu's call with U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd J. Austin III, White House National Security Council spokesperson Adrienne Watson dismissed the allegations as transparently false. The world would see through any attempt to use this allegation as a pretext for escalation, Watson said. Russia's nuclear threats have grown louder as its position in Ukraine has become increasingly desperate, and Ukrainian troops now threaten to force the Russians to retreat from the key port city of Kherson, yet another potential turning point in the war. Syrsky is one of the minds behind the two crucial victories so far that have enabled Ukraine's stunning success in pushing back Russian forces. When Russian troops advanced on Kyiv in late February, shortly after launching the invasion of neighboring Ukraine, Syrsky directed the defense that shattered Putin's initial objectives. Then in September, Syrsky led the counteroffensive in northeastern Ukraine that liberated thousands of miles of Russian-occupied territory. A disaster for Moscow that forced Putin to order a military draft and, for the first time, raised the prospect that Russian forces might suffer a full defeat in Ukraine. Of course I think we are winning, Syrsky told ABC News. Because, first and foremost, we are winning the psychological battle. But the commander warned against complacency, noting the heavy sacrifices that success has required of Ukrainians. We have success on the battleground, but war is difficult, he added. There hasn't been any wars at that scale in Europe, or elsewhere in the world, since the Second World War. And we understand that this war is about survival of our people and our state, and this is why we have no other option but to win. Syrsky was given the Hero of Ukraine award in April for his efforts defending the capital city. But the victory in Kharkiv, his hometown, was especially personal. Cerebral and reflective, Syrsky is also a military leader who prefers to see the front lines himself, regularly visiting positions to personally meet some of the soldiers he is sending into battle. He told ABC News he feels that responsibility and has a spiritual connection with his troops. Although he was appointed to his current post in 2019. Syrsky has helped lead Ukraine's defense against Russia since 2014, when Russian troops and separatist proxies seized parts of the disputed Donbas region, the predominantly Russian-speaking industrial heartland of Ukraine's east. Syrsky has a deep familiarity with the tactics of his enemy, having been trained in the same Soviet school of warfare. In the 1980s, he studied at the Moscow Higher Combined Arms Command School. Now, he's exploiting that knowledge on the battlefield. It's easier to understand your enemy's actions, he told ABC News. You can foresee what he might do in different situations. But as a commander, like the rest of Ukraine's military leadership, Syrskyi has embraced a different mode of military thinking since even before 2014, adopting NATO doctrines that grant greater initiative to more junior officers on the ground and moving away from the top-down Soviet approach. Of course, there was a change in mentality, he said. Understanding that victory is achieved not by increasing the number of troops, but by using them smartly. Russian invaders announce recruitment to Kherson, territorial defense forces. The so-called administration authorities of Russian-occupied Kherson have announced the formation of a territorial defense force for the city. Source: RIA Novosti, the Russian Kremlin-aligned news agency, citing the local authorities appointed by Russia. Kirillo Budanov, the head of the Chief Intelligence Directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, in an interview with UP details, the men who have not yet left the occupied city are given the option to join the territorial defense units in Kherson at their own request. At the same time, Kirillo Budanov, the head of the Chief Intelligence Directorate, said he believed that the Russian occupation forces were preparing to defend Kherson, not to retreat from it. But at the same time, I can't tell you that they are running away from Kherson right now. No, there is no such thing. They are making preparations so that, if necessary, they can get out very quickly. However, they are not preparing to leave now, they are preparing for defense, the head of the directorate said. Budanov considers the message about the evacuation from Kherson to be an information operation, a manipulation. On the contrary, they are bringing new military units there and preparing the city's streets for defense. Russians abducting children from occupied Enerhodar against their parents. Will some residents of the occupied town of Enerhodar, host to the occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, and surrounding villages, who sent their children to Russia's Krasnodar Krai for a vacation, have received a message that their children will stay in Russia for an indefinite period, the local mayor Dmytro Orlov said on the Telegram messenger on October 23. The Russians ordered parents to hand over warm clothes, adding that their children would go to Russian schools. In fact, children are now held hostage by terrorists, Orlov said. And if one part of the parents is not scared at all, the other is frankly shocked by the development of events. Earlier on October 15, Orlov said that invading Russian forces had begun abducting children from Enerhodar to Russia's Krasnodar Krai, calling it a vacation trip. The mayor warned the front line in the Kherson and later in the Zaporizhzhia areas could be cut at any moment, while further intense battles would simply block all ways back. Thousands of Ukrainian children have been forcibly abducted by Russian forces. In many cases, these children are adopted by Russian families and forced to abandon their previous families, lives, and Ukrainian identities, according to multiple media reports. By the standards of international humanitarian law, this constitutes an act of genocide. Thanks for listening. See you the next video.